Hello everyone, welcome to our new webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the newest ISO management system standard. We got some amazing guests today and we are happy to have all of you here today with us. The topic for today is how to become an ISO ISC lead implementer. With us today we got John Truby and Frederick Wilkham. Myself, I'm Liren Blotza, the COO of TRECCERT. I have been working in the industry for the last 5 years, and I've been closely involved in the development of our new ISO 4201 certification scheme, working with subject matter experts and other parties and partners in order to develop a certification scheme for persons, which we have finalized, and it is available for anybody to get certified all over the world. Before we continue with the topics of today, I would like to briefly introduce our distinguished guests and speakers, which we are truly honored to have today. With us today is John Truby. He is a leading AI law and governance professor, recognized as one of the world's top 2% scientists by Stanford University. As a technology law expert, John serves as an academic visitor at Oxford University Institute of Ethics in AI. His highly cited research in emerging technology law has been presented at the United Nations, and he actively contributes to the AI policy and advisory committees. John holds numerous ISO certifications, including for the AI management system ISO 4201 as a lead implementer and senior lead auditor. Also in ISO 27701 privacy information management system lead implementer. John is also a global trainer for EAPP, AI Governance Professional, AIGP certification, and serves as an AIPP chapter chair and ISACA chapter foundation. So thank you, John, for joining us today, and welcome to the webinar as well. With us today is also Frederick Wilkham, who brings around 20 years of experience in aerospace and IT industries, with a background in engineering, complemented by an MBA and PhD, followed by 12 years of freelance auditing. As a lead auditor for aerospace with a standard EN 9100 and ISO 2701, 27701, he has collaborated with key players like Bureau Veritas, BSI Group, Intertech Europe, and US. Frederick has audited prominent organizations, including the European Space Agency, CGI, Airbus, Collins Aerospace, Amadeus IT, AXA, Safran Group, and other against ISO 9100 and 2701 standard. He is a certified trainer for EN 9100, ISO 2701 as lead implementer and lead auditor, and ISO 4201. And he is actively working with medtech AI companies implementing these standards. In order to deliver our message for today, we're going to be briefly talking about TRECCERT, what our company represents. We're going to discuss briefly what the standard ISO 4201 contains and what it is all about. And then our guests are going to be talking about the specific fields. We're going to have John, who's going to talk about the tasks and the responsibilities of a lead implementer for ISO 4201, and Frederick is going to cover the tasks of a lead auditor with respect to ISO 4201. And then on the last part, we're going to discuss briefly the certification requirements as they stand right now for the TRECCERT lead implementer and lead auditor certifications that are available for anyone right now. So briefly about TRECCERT, we are a relatively young certification body. Our mission is to enhance the career prospects of our community members by guiding them towards recognized certification and training, which enables them to demonstrate their professional competence. We strive for sustainability, and we believe in the social responsibility of organizations and building up a non-discriminatory environment. We are committed to customers and service-oriented. We try to provide quality services through competence and resourcefulness by collaborating with leading figures like John and Frederick. We try to create a professional environment that nurtures the desire for learning and certification for professionals, and we always are improving based on the feedback we receive by all interested parties, including our certified people, trainers, and other members. We have a pretty wide portfolio of certification and trainings schemes. We have trainings in compliance management with ISO 37301, information security. We have the ANAB accredited ISO 27001 lead implementer and lead auditor schemes, which we truly believe that are the international gold standard when it comes to ISO 27001 certifications. And the goal is that we're going to accredit all our certification schemes soon with the American National Accreditation Board. That way, we can ensure the quality of our certification schemes. We also have schemes in data protection that cover GDPR, business continuity with ISO 22301, quality management, environmental management, AI management, which we're going to cover today, ESG, risk management, and the auditing of management systems, which is based on ISO 1911. Our unique approach allows candidates from all over the world to sign up for certification as long as they believe that they fulfill the requirements. Our trainings are not a prerequisite for certification in any of our schemes. They are there to help our candidates, but if any of you wants to get certified through TRECCERT, you could hypothetically do it directly through our website, but we highly encourage people to consult with our leading trainers like John and Frederick that we have here today. And also, it is worth noting that at the end of the session today, we will have the opportunity to ask questions to John and Frederick regarding the implementation and auditing against ISO 42001. We have right now 3 certifications available related to ISO 42001. We got the beginner level practitioner, which is well suited for candidates that want to have a good grasp of the standard, but are not expected to be leading implementation or auditing projects. Nonetheless, this course still contains key information about the standards and will be instrumental to anybody who's going to be involved in projects related to ISO 42001. Then we do have the ISO 42001 lead implementer and lead auditor schemes, which provide in-depth details on how to implement all requirements and controls of the standard, as well as how to prepare an audit program and lead an audit team to audit against ISO 42001. It's worth noting here that while these 2 schemes are available and they have their specific requirements, anybody can apply for them, and if they pass the exam, they will get a certificate, whether it is a lead auditor or provisional auditor or implementer in this case, depending on the level of experience they have. Before we dwell deeper into the implementation and audit side, I would like to briefly talk about the ISO 42001 standard. It is one of the newest standards of ISO. It was published late in 2023. It is the world's first standard related to AI management systems. It is created jointly in a collaboration between ISO and IEC as our most standard that are related to technology. It is applicable to all organizations that provide AI systems. So if your organization is using AI for whatever reason, especially if personal data is involved, it is highly recommended that you look into the AI management system or relevant requirements that are applicable right now, including the EU AI Act, which I have to say that the standard is very well aligned with the EU AI Act and will be of great help to any organization that wants to ensure that they are compliant with the new EU Act. The standard focuses on some of the biggest challenges related to AI, which include transparency and continuous learning, and how different organizations use data to feed the AI systems, train them, and utilize them. The standard is structured similarly to other ISO management systems. It has the high-level structure, or Annex SL as it's called. It has 10 clauses, and these cover the regular topics, including first the scope of the standard and finishing with the improvement of the management system. We're gonna discuss a little bit the individual clauses and what they contain, and here you have a breakdown of the main clauses, because as you know, the three first clauses do not contain requirements. They provide the terminology, the scope of the standards, but they do not contain requirements for the organizations themselves. The first clause that contains requirements is number 4, which is the context of the organization. This clause basically requires organizations to understand their position, understand what their interested parties or stakeholders want from them with regard to AI systems in this case. Based on that, organizations can establish the scope of the management system, whether they want to include the entire organization within the management system or just parts of it. It is up their decision, but they first need to understand what is required of them uh, before they can proceed with the next steps. Then we have leadership. It is intentionally one of the initial clauses because ISO standards have a high emphasis on management buy-in. It is crucial that leadership is involved in the management system one way or another. Normally, especially in large organizations, top management doesn't need to be involved in the day-to-day business, but they need to approve key documents such as the AI policy and attend management reviews, lead them, and make decisions that are consequential to the management system, including changes to the management system, objectives of the management system, and so on. Then we have planning. This is a key clause of the standard because it is here that organizations need to consider risk and opportunities related to AI, which can be quite difficult since it is safe to say that even today we don't really understand completely the entirety of the ramifications and consequences of using AI systems for whatever reason. Here, organizations are required to also conduct an impact assessment. And based on these two processes, organizations need to determine the necessary controls to be implemented for the management system. We're going to cover the controls a little bit later, but they are one distinguishing feature of the standard, which makes it quite similar to ISO 2701 in this regard, that both contain requirements that are related to technology, people, and many other items. The next clause is support. This is related to the resources, human resources, equipment, finances necessary for operating an AI management system. Competence, people need to be trained to operate an AI management system. So if your organization is considering implementing such a standard, it is crucial that at least the core group of the people are trained and preferably also certified on implementing an AI management system. A lot of companies choose to use consultants for that, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, competence still needs to be there because consultants are typically not going to be there every day to manage every issue that may arise. We need to raise awareness on the company, so the company will need to have some sort of awareness and training program for their people, including external parties like business associates and outsourced partners, that they need to be aware of the AI policy, objectives, their role within the AI management system, and the consequences of not complying with the requirements. There's communication requirements. on how the organization and what the organization needs to communicate regarding the system, and of course the management of documented information. So how the organization stores documents, what they do with them, which documents are stored and which need to be available, which are all necessary in case they want to certify the management system. This is a critical part of the standard. We have the operation clause 8, which is typically the most substantial part of the standard. Here we see that the organizations need to conduct the AI risk assessment, risk treatment, and impact assessment. You see, we have these, we talk about risks initially and then again in the operation, because the organization needs to do a risk assessment regarding the management system itself and then conduct risk assessment and impact assessment about how that AI management, how that AI system will impact other parties. If they're providing it to other parties, how it impacts the customers, or if they're using, how it's impacting them, their employees, and other parties that do business with them. And these have to be repeated at planned intervals. So organizations are required that they need to conduct risk assessment, risk treatments, and impact assessment in regular intervals, as well as when there are major changes in the organizations. The ninth clause is the performance evaluation, which the organization needs to conduct to monitor the management system, key performance indicators, and various indicators that show them the health of the management system. Based on these findings, the organization can conduct internal audits. They need to be conducted at regular, at planned intervals. Similarly, the management review needs to be conducted at planned intervals, and decisions need to be taken regarding the findings of the internal audit and opportunities for improvement. Finally, is the improvement. All management systems based on ISO standards have this inbuilt feature that they need to be continuously improved based on lessons learned, based on audit findings, based on recommendations by other parties and developments. So it is crucial that organizations have a system in place that they review corrective actions and opportunities for improvement. They evaluate their effectiveness and then take decision based on these findings. As I said earlier, ISO 4201 is quite similar to ISO 2701 in that sense that they both include controls, which most ISO standards don't. But these controls need to be determined through the risk assessment and impact assessment processes. The organization needs to prepare a statement of applicability, and where they state which controls they have decided to use, how they will implement these controls, and which they have not decided to use, and for what reason. This means that the organization don't necessarily need to implement all controls. They just have to have good reasons for implementing or not implementing them. The controls are based on various fields. First, we have the policies related to AI. We have the major AI policy, but then we have lower level policies for all kinds of things. There should be policies for training data use, for how we store and process data, and all kinds of processes that are related to the AI system. Then we have internal organization. These talk about the roles and responsibilities within the organization with regard to the AI management system and the AI system that the organization provides or utilizes. Then we have resources for AI systems. This includes all types of resources, including the human resources, the data, the equipment used to run the AI systems, and all necessary resources need to be planned and provided for an AI system. The other control is the impact assessment for AI system, which is a very critical part of the entire AI management system. It can be difficult to assess the impacts. That's where people like John come in. They've done work in the ethics related to AI, and especially in the initial phases, a lot of companies are consulting people that are trained in these fields in order to determine the potential impacts that an AI system could have, because they could be manifolds, including politics and the way societies interact with each other, the way work is performed, education and whatnot. Then we have the controls related to AI system lifecycle. Every system has a life cycle. Eventually, it will need to be decommissioned, but there needs to be a system in place on how the entire system is managed from its inception, from its planning inception, and then decommissioning. We have controls related to the AI system development life cycle. These include the necessary measures that are structured controls that guide the development of AI system, and it ensures that AI systems are built in a systematic, reliable, and efficient manner. We have data for AI systems, again, a critical control. Here, this is one of the biggest concerns right now with AI and what AI does with personal data, especially, but not necessarily only personal data, but all types of data that are fed into AI systems in a exponentially growing amount. Then we have information for interested parties of AI systems. The interested parties could be the clients, could be the people that are affected directly, indirectly, could be regulators, could be developers, outsourcing parties, and all the parties that are one way or another related or impacted by that AI system. We have controls related to the use of AI systems because all AI systems have one intended use, but it is often proving to be the case that people find ways to use them for different purposes, and sometimes these can be controversial, to put it mildly, but it happens, and organizations need to have something in place to foresee this and try to take measures to limit the use and applicability of the system within the intended um, ways. Then we have the third party relationships. Organizations can outsource a lot of the processes related to an AI system development, and a lot of parties can be involved using, for example, like people that are hosting the systems or providing the necessary equipment, and organizations at the end of the day retain full responsibility regardless of who's providing which part of the AI system. So it is essential that organizations have a system in place that assesses which parties to work with, assesses their performance on a continual basis, and take actions to adjust as necessary based on the findings of these assessments and evaluations. So this was a brief rundown of what the standard contains, and I hope I managed to cover the necessities. I'm sure that John and Frederick will have more to add regarding the implementation audit. And without further ado, I'd like to give the word to John, who will cover the tasks of the lead implementer and will guide us through the implementation perspective of the standard. So, yeah.
Thank you, Liram. Thank you. And so the job of the lead implementer, if you're responsible for this, you're responsible for, your organization will have decided to align with ISO 42001. They want to ensure that the standards are then adhered to within your organization. So you might have this job either working internally or as a consultant. And you think it's really quite important because um, by aligning with the standard, you're helping to ensure that any high level risks, any high risk AI is effectively controlled and managed as much as possible. Because as Liram said, some of it can be unpredictable, some of it can contain bias and so on. So your job is really helping to control this possibly unpredictable um, evolving system as best as possible. And so all we can do, as professionals, is to put in place these effective management systems to govern the risks. So there are these various steps here, step 1 to 5, which are all very detailed. And when you take the course, you would go into quite a lot of detail on each step. I'll cover them in like an overview. So we'll start with the AIMS implementation. So this step, lays the foundation for the entire implementation process. The initial task is developing the project charter. This involves defining the project's purpose, scope, and objectives, and outlining the roles and responsibilities. So for example, an AI startup might create a charter for integrating AI-driven customer service chatbots, aiming to reduce response times by a specific amount, say 50%, and maybe improve customer satisfaction by 30%. So that would be quite a specific version. Next, your job would be to ensure that management commitment. So securing support from commitment from senior management is really crucial. So your job will be a whole lot easier and more straightforward if there is significant support. And we in the course teaches methods of how to do that. So imagine the CEO of a financial institution endorsing the implementation of an AI fraud detection system, and they would need to allocate the necessary budget and resources, realizing the importance of fraud prevention. Identifying interested parties is another critical task, and there's a whole procedure on how to do that involving analyzing stakeholders who would be affected by the AIMS. For example, a hospital implementing AI for predictive patient diagnostics would involve doctors, patients, IT staffs, regulatory bodies, and understanding who these stakeholders are and involving them ensures that all perspectives are covered. You would then go to conducting the gap analysis, which compares the current state against the desired state to identify gaps. So a manufacturing company, for example, might evaluate its current control, quality control processes against the ISO standards, identifying gaps in data integration and AI model accuracy. If the AI policy was reviewed 2 years ago and lacks updates reflecting recent AI advancements, it would highlight an area needing improvement. And within this step 1, you'd also then need to prepare the PDCA cycle. So this is Plan, Do, Check, Act. You may have heard of this from different standards or disciplines. This cycle ensures continuous improvement, and we teach how to do each of those parts. Step 2 is planning. So moving on to the planning, we start by establishing the context and defining the AIMS scope. So this involves defining the boundaries and applicability of the AIMS. For example, a logistics company might define the scope of its AIMS to include, route optimization and inventory management systems. So factors to consider there would include internal mandates, management responsibility, communication and documentation, and system capabilities. Steps in this process include determining the preliminary scope with a representative group, reviewing functional units to refine the scope, obtaining top management approval again. And then you'd think about boundaries like organizational boundaries such as key processes, departments, stakeholders, the whole organization itself. Those would be considered types of organizational boundaries. They differ from information system boundaries and physical boundaries, such as locations or facilities covered by the AI management systems. Next, you'd establish the AI management system objectives and policies. So setting clear objectives and policies is really crucial for guiding the implementation. For example, complying with AI-related legal requirements, demonstrating due diligence in AI system design, inspiring stakeholder confidence, enhancing response to AI-related incidents, and promoting responsible AI innovation. the policy needs to be appropriate to the organization's purpose. It needs to provide a framework for setting AI objectives. It needs to include a commitment to meet applicable requirements and ensure the continuous improvement, which is one of your overarching aims as a lead implementer. Communicating the policy is also essential, which involves publishing the AI policy and sharing it with relevant interested parties. You then define the risk assessment approach. So this involves outlining the methodology for assessing AI-related risks. So, if you were a tech firm developing autonomous vehicles, you would define a risk assessment approach to evaluate potential safety risks and compliance with regulatory standards. Creating the AI management system implementation plan is the final step in this task. So developing a detailed implementation plan ensures all aspects are covered. Step 3, the AMS implementation and operation. So in this step, you first carry out the risk management process. So you may be familiar from this with risk management from different disciplines. This involves, implementing processes to manage risks which you've identified. So for example, an AI healthcare provider might implement measures to ensure patient data privacy and security in compliance with GDPR. Next, you'd implement the AIMS policies and procedures. So this step ensures that established policies and procedures are, executed effectively. Then managing the AIMS operations is another critical task. This involves overseeing the daily operations of the AI management system. So for instance, a financial services firm might manage its AI-based investment advisory system, monitoring performance and making necessary adjustments. Finally, managing resources is essential. So you don't have unlimited resources. That's something you have to accept as a lead implementer. Allocating and managing resources effectively, and allocating them to higher risk levels, ensures the success of the AIMS. If you were an AI startup, for example, every organization has different resources available. An AI startup might allocate its data science team to develop and refine algorithms for its new AI product, and then you need to ensure the risk levels are managed appropriately. Step 4 is on the AIMS monitoring review, and this involves continuously monitoring the AIMS performance. So this is really crucial, and when you get to the audit stage, they will check are you continuously monitoring. Now some organizations use continuous monitoring technology, and or depending on the organization, there are different steps to ensure that the monitoring is continuous. Remember, you are dealing with AI systems which may be prone to error or make mistakes or expose themselves as having bias. Stopping these problems through monitoring can really save your company a lot of liability, a lot of reduce the risk. So this is, I can't emphasize enough how important the monitoring stage is. And this it ensures that the AIMS operates as it is intended and meets its objectives. So if you've got an online platform, for example, this might monitor the effectiveness of its AI content moderation system, tracking metrics like accuracy and response times. Conducting internal audits is also essential. So regular internal audits ensure compliance with internal policies and regulatory requirements. Your company might have an internal audit team or department. So for example, a tech company might conduct internal audits of its AI development processes to ensure adherence to ethical guidelines and standards. Then you reviewing the AIMS is the next sort of crucial step. So regular reviews of the management system ensures it remains effective and up to date. Finally, step 5 on maintenance improvement. So this is where you would implement corrective and preventative actions to address identified issues and prevent future recurrences. So, for example, the example I gave before about the transportation company, they might address issues in its AI routing system by updating algorithms and improving data quality to prevent future routing errors. Ensuring continual improvement is your final task here. So this involves ongoing efforts really to enhance the AI management system to meet evolving needs and standards. So if it's a social media platform, it might continually improve its AI content recommendation algorithms based on user feedback and emerging trends to enhance user experience. So by fulfilling these tasks and following this process, step 1 to 5, the lead implementer, ensures that the organization's AIMS is effectively established, implemented, and maintained in compliance with the standard. And this builds trust, internally and externally. So now we look more at the PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, and act. So this cycle, really drives continuous improvement in processes and systems, supporting organizations to ensure consistent quality and performance. So in the plan step, the organization identifies and analyzes a problem or opportunity for improvement, sets objectives, and develops a plan to achieve those objectives. So this involves considering relevant internal and external factors and adhering to the requirements of the applicable standards from the ISO. In the do step, the organization implements the plan by carrying out the activities and tasks defined during the planning stage. So this involves putting the plan into action and collecting data to evaluate the results. So if, for example, following the plan, the technology company might update its AI model, and it might enhance the knowledge base and deploy the improved system. For example, data on query resolution rates and user satisfaction could be collected throughout this process. In the check step, the organization evaluates the results of the implementation stage by comparing the actual results to the planned objectives. So this involves analyzing data to ensure whether the objectives have been achieved and identifying the reasons for any shortfalls. So going back to the example I gave, after 3 months, say the company reviews the data collected, they find that the unresolved query rate has decreased by 15%, say. This might be at the target, it might be below the target. So if it's below the target, analyzing the data, they would then identify that certain types of complex queries are still problematic for the AI system. The act step, in this step, the organization takes action to improve the process or system based on the results from the check stage. So this involves making changes to the plan or process, implementing corrective actions, and updating the system to prevent similar problems from occurring in the future. So the lead implementer plays a pivotal role in guiding the organization through these PDCA steps, through this cycle, to ensure continuous improvement. And they have these steps mentioned here, these tasks. So continuous improvement, firstly. So the lead implementer should implement the management system through the use of the PDCA cycle, driving continuous improvement in processes and systems. Secondly, make data-driven decisions. So kind of obvious, the lead implementer would ensure that decisions are based on data, enhancing the objectivity and effectiveness of the AI management system. So, for example, a healthcare provider would use, if it uses patient data analytics to identify areas for improvement in their AI diagnostic tools, This can ensure data-driven enhancements to accuracy and reliability. A structured approach, this ensures consistency and clarity throughout the AI management system. Fourthly, ensuring consistency. So the lead implementer would ensure that the AI management system processes are consistent across the organization, maintaining uniform standards and practices. So for example, a multinational corporation standardizes its AI governance policies across all branches, ensuring consistent compliance with global regulations. Ensure flexibility, that's essential to adapt to changing circumstances and requirements in this rapidly evolving field of AI. Identify and manage risks. This is critical to mitigate potential issues that could impact the AI management system. So, for example, an autonomous vehicle manufacturer, I mentioned before, could identify safety risks, and then they would implement risk management strategies to ensure compliance and safety. Then finally, number 7, improve performance. This is the ultimate goal of the lead implementer. Your goal is to improve the performance of the whole management system, ensuring it delivers the desired outcomes. So let me go to the next slide, please. Here. So the PDCA cycle is an effective. It's really quite an effective strategy for ensuring that all organizational processes and their interactions are planned, implemented, checked, and continuously improved. The standard is designed to apply to organizations of all sizes and natures. So let's look at some of these phases. So we're looking now at the planning stage of the PDCA. It's fundamental as it involves setting the context of the organization. This includes identifying interested parties and understanding their needs and expectations. Furthermore, it requires defining the scope of the management system. The doing stage involves implementing the plan, really. So the AI management system at this stage is put into action, and the progress is monitored towards achieving its objectives and targets. In the checking stage, this requires monitoring and measuring the performance of the management system against its objectives and targets. This is actually a requirement in ISO 42001. The acting stage involves taking corrective actions to address any gaps or areas or improvement identified in the checking stage. And again, that's required in the standard. So you've got to think then about the context and so on in your application. Context, leadership, planning, support, and operation. These are all elements of applying the clauses to the cycle. And each one of these has its own requirements. So as well as performance evaluation and improvement. So, for example, implementing corrective and preventative actions to ensure continual improvement of the AI management system. I feel like I'm going to encroach into Frederick's time, so I think I'll stop there and I'll come back at the end with any questions. So thank you, and yeah. Over to you, Frederick.
We can't hear you, Liam. We can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Liam, you are muted.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, John, for your part. And without further ado, we'll take it to Frederick to cover the lead auditor part.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Liam. So that's a pleasure to be with you today. In the continuity of what John said, I would like to highlight a couple of what I believe key points with regards to auditing. Can you come to the next slide, Liam? Thank you. So first of all, remind that an audit is a systematic, independent and documented process. So it means that it has a start and it has a end. It starts with the contact that you will take with the team, with the auditees, and it ends with the closure meeting in which you will state on all the findings of the audit and the follow-up, of course, that you will have with the auditees in case there are non-conformances into the process. But the process is mostly there to evaluate and obtain objective evidences that demonstrate that the AIMS, the Artificial Intelligence Management System, is conformal according to the scope that is defined and according to the criteria. These criteria, they are mainly based on the standard, of course, so it is key to make sure that all the requirements of the standard are met. But it is also key to make sure during the audit and to assess during the audit that the AIMS, so the system, is also conformal with regards to the documentation system of the company that is being audited, and also is conformal with regards to the applicable laws and regulations that are part of the AIMS, like, for instance, the AI Act that Lirim introduced very briefly at the beginning of the talk. And to do that, there is also a number of guidelines. These guidelines are based on ISO 19011. If you can just be back, thank you, Lirim. They are based on ISO 19011, which is forming the central core of the Lead Auditor training course. This course would enable you to develop practical auditing skills with regards to internal second and third party audits. You can come to the next slide, Lirim. Thank you. So there are indeed different types of audits. John talked briefly about internal audit in the implementation part. Indeed, an internal audit is a process that you have to manage internally in the company. That may be done by an internal team, that may also be done by an external auditor in case you don't have the adequate resources in the company, whether these resources do not have sufficient competence based on what is needed to audit, or maybe simply the team is too small and there would be not enough independency. We will see that in the next slide afterwards, managing the audit. So in such a case, there is a need to bring an external auditor within the team. These internal audits, they are called first-party audit. Okay. Then you also have the external audits, and in the frame of the audits of the ISMS, you will, in most of the cases, be in contact with a number of suppliers, subcontractors that are part of your ISMS as well. And in some situations, you will need to audit as well these suppliers and subcontractors, depending on the risks. This is a word that John insisted a lot, and indeed it is central to the standard. When you will audit, you also have to audit according to risks and put more emphasis where the risks are higher. So it may happen that you would go and audit your some at least of your suppliers and subcontractors, in which case these are called second-party audits. Then comes the third-party audits, which are the certification audits. So when your AIMS is ready to be certified, ready to be audited and then certified, possibly, if this is your choice, because it is also important to keep in mind that ISO 42001 is a certifiable standard. So it means that you can get a certificate on on the management system, which is giving evidences, again, according to your customers, according to your suppliers, that your system is indeed in place and meets all the requirements of the standard. You can come to the next slide. So to do that, there are a number of tasks that you have as an auditor to be careful about, I would say. Without going into too many details, I would like to outline a couple of advices, if I can say, that I do believe are quite important to follow when you go for an audit. The first advice is somehow, I would say, to put aside your personal opinions. Okay, of course, you come with some experience in the industry, in the audit process, and at some occasion you are a little bit willing to push, I would say, this experience into the audit. The first important point in an audit is to be a good listener. Your objective is first to understand basically what the company has implemented as an ISMS, how it is implemented, and to evaluate the main concepts in relation with artificial intelligence. So, of course, I would say as an example, or as a couple of examples, is there, for instance, an appropriate balance in between governance and innovation? We know that artificial intelligence is bringing a lot of innovation, but on the other side, ISO 42001 is a management system. And so governance is central to it. So how is top management, how is that, has this been defined by top management? How is top management governing this? Is an important point. And to do this, you will naturally assess the artificial intelligence policy, for instance, and make sure that the policy that is proposed to you is coherent with regards to what you can observe during the audit. That is a key role of the auditor, to ensure that what is proposed to you is a coherent management system. Obviously, you would have to judge on the requirements and make sure that they matches in between the standard and the practical implementation, but also looking for coherence. I'm taking another example, for instance, with regards to the objectives. John briefly said as well about the objectives that are discussed into the standard. Your role as an auditor is to assess whether there are key performance indicators which are attached to the main activities of artificial intelligence, if there are objectives that are attached to it, and again, if this is coherent, if these objectives are met or not, and if not, which may of course happen, if there is an action plan behind, because this is the PDCA loop, the continuous improvement loop, that is finally very important. Couple of other points with regards to artificial intelligence, which may be important to assess during the audit, is, for instance, the learning processes. There is a lot of learning into artificial intelligence, so there should be processes behind. It's up to you as an auditor to understand what are these processes, if they are properly implemented. What about the transparency, for instance, in the results that will be delivered by these processes? We took the example of a car. Indeed, there are many processes which are behind, I would say, the design and the manufacturing of the car. But what about the transparency of the results? What about the fact that the algorithms are sufficiently reliable? So in different situations, they may give similar results, or in identical or close situations, they will give identical results. They will behave basically in the same way. Other questions that you would need to assess as an auditor may be related to ethics. This is also an important concept, I would say, in ISO 42001, which appears in some other standards, especially in aerospace. There is a point on ethics. And if I'm correct, in the next coming ISO 9001 that should come in 2026, ethics will also play an important role. So this is quite an achievement, I would say, in this audit process to assess this, trying to understand again how the company has taken care about that and how it has been implemented. You may come to the next slide, Hiram. Okay, thanks for this. So I discussed already most of the elements that are discussed there, so I won't insist too much. Maybe a word on unbiased, if you can, yes, maybe if you can just stay a couple of seconds on this, thank you. So the bias is also an important concept in artificial intelligence, so it's your duty as an auditor to assess this, okay? There are many situations in which there are data which are given as an input into the algorithm, and there is a bias, which means that well, you don't necessarily go to the adequate answer. There is a slight bias close to that, and especially with the treatment of personal data, as ISO 27K and ISO 42K may be closely related, it is important to understand how the bias risks are taken care into the management system. Then you can come to the next slide. Thank you. I'm just trying to keep the time so we have a couple of minutes at least for the questions. So I just said that an audit is a process. This is what basically you see here, okay? So you need to fix objectives that start with the scope. What you are looking inside the scope has to be audited. What is outside the scope should not be audited. Of course, you can talk about it with the company, but you will not report on it, and you will certainly not issue opportunities for improvements or non-conformances in case you may outline a few. Based on that, you need to establish an audit program that is discussed with the organization and, of course, implement this audit program, making sure that it meets the expectations of ISO 19011 and, of course, the agreement of the company as well. Maybe the next slide, Lirim. Okay. Again, I won't go into the details seeing the time, but as I explained, this is a process. So especially during the audit execution, I would like to focus on different points. First, in the opening meeting, present the objectives of the audit. Another one is the closing meeting, very important. And I would like to emphasize as well on the fact that it's key to demonstrate the strengths of the company in an audit. So the audit is not, and this is applying, of course, for ISO 42K, is not a moment at which you are looking for evidence of non-conformities, but as I said at the beginning of my talk, to assess the positive objective evidence, to find the objective evidence, positive ones, that indeed the audit the system, is meeting the requirements of the audit. Then, of course, you would have to report this properly. This is also an important exercise. Whether you do an internal audit, second party or third party, of course, reporting would be different, but it is very important to put all these elements in a report and then follow up, especially if there are non-conformances, to make sure that the company is taking care about that. Lirim? We are almost on time, so I think that I will stop here, okay? You're muted, Lirim.
Sorry. Thanks again, Frederick. Very informative. Sorry that we were a bit short on time, but we do have some questions that maybe you can relate to some of them with your experience. But before that, I'd just like to inform everybody before people leave that anybody who has signed up for this webinar will receive an email with a 50% discount code for our ISO lead implementer, lead auditor, and practitioner certificates, which you can use on our web shop to get your opportunity to get certified. Briefly, I will talk about the certification requirements and then we will answer questions. So how this works is that essentially you apply for certification, submit the exam application form. If you pass the exam, then you need to adhere to the CPE program, which is that you have to submit continuous professional education credit in order to be able to reactivate your certificate after the initial certification period, adhere to the code of ethics and certification requirements. So for our lead implementer and lead auditor certificates, you need 400 hours of implementation or audit experience. You need at least 2 years of field-related experience, so working in AI management or management systems based on ISO in general, or auditing experience, and then 5 years of general work experience, which experience can be reduced if you have a higher level of certification, say a master's or a PhD in a related field. As I said in the beginning, if you do not fulfill all these requirements and you pass the exam, you still get a certificate. You may get an implementer certificate or a provisional certificate, which you can upgrade once you fulfill these requirements. So the exam it has 150 multiple choice questions. Only one answer is correct. You have 3 hours to fulfill the exam, and all questions are exclusively based on the standards. So if you know the standard well, ISO 4201 and 1911, you can take the exam today. You don't need to attend the training or anything. You just can go straight to the examination and do that. However, if you do need a training course, please do contact us and we will get you a good source of information. We also do have self-study materials available for everybody. Then we have the CPE program. We encourage certificate holders to submit 30 CPE credits per year, but we do require 90 for the 3-year certification cycle. Anybody who is certified, for example, today will have a valid certificate until the end of 2027. So it will be 3 full years plus the remaining of this year, regardless if you submit any CPE or anything. You just need to pass the exam. But if you want to reactivate your certificate after the initial certification period, you will need to submit the CPE credits accumulated during this period. Then it is essential that during this time you adhere to the code of ethics, where you act independently with integrity, objectivity. Once your certificate is not valid, do not claim to be valid. You act professionally, ethically, and with responsibility, comply with laws, and so on. You can read the full code of ethics on our website. So thank you very much to each and every one of you for your time today. Before we go, we have some questions that we can go through consecutively. If I may, I will start reading them, and then Frederick and we can tackle them together maybe, and if you're up for that. So the first question we have is that it's from Ken Soko. He asked, it seems that the AIMS and ISMS do leverage the same high-level structure. What percentage of AI content must be unique document versus being incorporated as a section within the ISO 2701 document? What do you think, Frederick? Should I cover this, or would you
To
like
you,
to?
Lirim. Well, I would say, if I may say a few words about that, indeed, the level, the structure is the same. Okay, so it is organized high level with a certain number of controls into the annex. With regards to the fact that, well, with the question that is raised regarding the percentage of common documentation or percentage of specific documentations to be addressed by AI, I would say, well, you have to understand that there are a number of controls. They have to be properly implemented, and they do not necessarily relate to information security. So indeed, you may complement, for instance, your security policy with an AI policy, in which case you may have possibly one unique document, okay? But for most of the other controls, you would have the need to complement your documentation system with a, I wouldn't say a significant, because again, the standard is not asking for a lot of documented information, but the system in clause 6 and lately in clause 8 is asking to be able to demonstrate basically that things are done. So it's a question that is difficult to answer, but I would say that there is still a jump, I would say, in between an ISMS and an AIMS.
Yes, and a lot of the processes, for example, like the management review, the internal audit, and even risk assessments, they can be organized jointly. It doesn't mean
Yes.
that you do one for separately. They can be done in one session, depending on the size of the organization. And also, like the document management system will be essentially the same principles. So if you have implemented the ISMS before, it will be much easier to implement the AIMS than to start from scratch. And there's this thing called the integrated management system, where ISO highly encourages companies to bring the management system together under one umbrella, so that the tasks are not duplicated. You can do a lot of things at once, so that you don't have to do everything separately. So I cannot say a specific percentage, Ken, but there's definitely some areas where the same documents or like similar documents or processes can be adopted to be used for the other management system.
Yeah.
Can
They will need
ask
to be,
again about, sorry, Frederick.
I would just say they will need to be completed somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ken asks about how long certificates are valid. So 3 full years plus the remaining of the year. So anybody who gets certified this year until the end of 2027. Um, Ina asks what kind of companies need ISO 4201? Only those who develop or they use ISO systems, or both if the AI systems are high risk AI systems. So, Frederick, would you like to add something to this
Yeah,
question?
I would definitely say both, Lirim. So there are indeed companies. You introduced my profile talking about the medtech as well at the very beginning. So I accompany, for instance, a certain number of organizations that are developing indeed some algorithm which are based on AI. So it's typically these companies have strong interest in moving to ISO 42001. But there are other companies that are using artificial intelligence. So they don't necessarily develop, they use certain number of equipments, which they may complete in different ways in relation with artificial intelligence. And then the question that comes is, as this is still a concept which is in which confidence, I would say, may remain at some moment limited, there are questions in relation to the quality of the results, the bias, the ethics that I briefly talked about into my talk. And if you want to make your interested parties confident on how this is managed in your company, even if you don't develop, that would be a good jump to go to ISO 42K as well.
Yeah, I agree with Frederick completely. It is applicable to both, especially if people are impacted by this AI system, regardless of which way, be that for employment or whatnot. If people are impacted, there needs to be some oversight, because we cannot really automate decisions that will have high consequences on people, regardless of whether we're developing the AI system or we're just using a ready bought system. So thank you, Frederick, again. Hope that answers to you, Ina. We will do one more question for the day. Sorry, we ran a little bit out of time. So we have a question from Anisa. Says, thank you for the insightful presentation. How do you foresee the evolution of AI standards impacting industry practices over the next 5 years? Frederick, would you like to take this as well?
That's a very good question, Lirim. I have my personal opinion about that. Also in relation with information security. So information security is becoming or taking now a really a central role, I would say, in day-to-day practices in companies. And I see this more and more in audits. So as I'm used to say, today this is managed mainly contractually speaking. And so a number of companies are pushing to their subcontractors and suppliers a number of requirements contractually to make sure that they meet a certain number of requirements in terms of information security. In something like, let's say, 2 to 3 years from now, I'm sure, because I have lived that as well in aerospace, that most probably being certified ISO 27K will become some kind of prerequisite for a number of companies if you want to work with these big players. The timing is, to my opinion, from 2 to 3 years. And I see really the number of companies willing to be certified ISO 27K growing a lot, and even 27701 growing as well. I would expect that the same trend would follow for ISO 42K, basically. To my opinion, that will take a little bit more time. Okay, so you will have the early adopters, as we are used to say, and if you can jump in sufficiently quickly into ISO 42K, you will certainly be in a position to give more confidence and take a stronger position, I would say, on the market, demonstrating through the standard that you have something in place that is giving confidence to your customers. For others, that will take a little bit longer. Okay, but and again, that's only my opinion. In something, let's say, of period of 3 to 5 years, you were talking about 5 years, Lirim. I'm almost sure that being certified with some standard of artificial intelligence will become also a prerequisite. Now, the standard that is in place, which is really recent, is to my opinion, again, a very good one because it's a high level and it is fully meeting. It's quite straightforward to implement, as we briefly discussed before. So I would say ISO 27K 2 to 3 years, ISO 42K 3 to 5 years. But definitely, the sooner you move to, the better it is.
I think it will be quite a considerable prerequisite for a lot of organizations that are worried about this. I do think that it will curtail a little bit, it will slow down maybe the development and the use of AI systems by organizations, especially in highly regulated countries like Europe, United States, and so on. But on the other hand, it will ensure that we'll have more safety related to them regarding our personal data and the bias and impact these systems have in the society, because we've seen some outrageous examples so far about the bias of AI systems. Also, I think that very importantly, it will sort of create a new job industry in itself, where we'll have a lot of people who previously did work in ethics and such fields jumping over to the AI world and having this crossover whereby they are will be employed in considering the ethics and biases of AI systems, and will create a lot more opportunities for consultants to audit and implement these systems. And I think that now is the right time to jump in, because I feel like ISO 4201 will be of similar stature like 2701 in 45 years. And we know full well that for ISO 2701, there's a huge demand for qualified implementers and auditors, and I feel like this is going to be true for the AI as well. So I highly encourage everybody to go check out opportunities for you to jump aboard and join this emerging field, because, as Frederick said, this will be quite common in the future, and I have a feeling that there will be a lot of very well-paying and very rewarding jobs in the future with regard to AI management and governance. So yeah, I think we should wrap this up, Frederick. We've already went over time for about 15 minutes or so. Thank you so much, Frederick and John and everybody else who joined today. It was a blast
Thank
discussing
you.
this with you. Very informative, and we look forward to seeing all of you to the next one. We'll make available some information, and as I said, we will send out an email with a discount code for everybody who attended to get your ISO 4201 certificate at a 50% discount only for a limited time. Thank you so much again, and have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Frederick, and bye
Enjoy
bye.
the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.